Well, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. If you have questions, Chris has some note cards. We can do it that way, and then we can open up for open questions and answers. But I appreciate you coming out. My name is Andrew Sandoval. I'm the District 5 representative. It's been, I think, about a year and a half since I got elected, and it's an adventure for sure. A lot to learn, and a lot to improve in our city. Although we are representatives of our districts, we do vote and make decisions and represent the whole city. Often I get calls from people from other districts, more often than not, and just try to help people resolve issues and get them information, or teach them how to get information. So with that, welcome. I'm very big on transparency. I ask a lot of questions. I like to do a lot of follow through. I like people asking questions because it often leads to things that we can work together to address. I think probably if I spoke to you on the phone, I'd probably ask you to do something to help out with a specific situation just so we can get the word out. So with that, we will open up for some questions. And we got one. I'm sure you will all warm up to the questions and answers and feel comfortable. Feel free to ask me anything. I do my best to be transparent and honest. It says, what prompted me to become a council member? Well, the roads, infrastructure, residents not getting responses to when they're calling for service. I have 4 kids. I was a coach for many years in many different sports. So I saw the condition of some of our fields. Gophers rule our fields. And I thought to myself, can we not find some common sense solution to some things? And in government, it's not always the case. There's a lot of bureaucratic processes and things that get in the way. But one of my favorite things to do is to help encourage new policies to address some of the issues that we're facing. I even thought about, and I was talking to our city manager about a pothole policy, and it sounds ridiculous, right? But I know we can fix the potholes. I know we don't have to do, a temporary job, a poor job. We could actually do a good job. We're facing some real challenges that have gone on, I think, accumulated now for the last 18 years. I hear that a lot. We just had a housing and land use meeting, and somebody said, 18 years ago, it was really different, and it's gotten worse and worse. And, my wife says not to joke, but I said, well, I've only been here a year and a half, so I cannot take the blame for everything yet. But no, I recognize infrastructure. I think we're over $1 billion in deficit, and, we're short-staffed in a lot of departments, including public safety. I hear numbers that 12 years ago or 18 years ago, when I went on a ride-along, they said we had 170 officers. And I thought, wow, city council or leadership, how did you let it get this bad? So I'm trying my best to address deficiencies, see where we can find money. And I like having conversations with people and hearing their ideas. So that's a little bit about why I ran and what I'm doing. So, if anybody has any questions, we'll just open it up to basic Q&A. If not, you'll just hear me talk for a long time. Hi.
Hi. So I'm actually a resident in District 3, and my question for you is that when watching the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion regarding appointee versus not having an appointee, right, during the interim. And obviously, as residents, we're very passionate about, and I'm wondering if you can share your perspective about the advantages and disadvantages of having an appointee for District 3, and will that appointee be eligible for election come November? Because I believe that was also a concern I heard when I was watching the video.
Sure, well, I'll start with the last question first. I did ask our city attorney and city manager if there was a provision we could put in the appointment, because I think that's the #1 concern I heard, is that whoever the council appoints will have an advantage. I also heard whoever the council approves will have a disadvantage. Right. So it's an interesting conversation. I replied to all my emails and I started asking people that. what would you prefer? And so with saying that there's not a provision that we could include. Now, we're going to get a list of questions that we can ask the potential people. I mean, that's going to be one of my questions. You know, do you plan to run for in November? You know, so there's not a requirement that we can put into place. Now, as far as the benefits and maybe downside of an appointment, I don't see a downside to an appointment. It's a pretty standard practice. I remember, I mean, there was a lot of comments and emails, and I remember Joseph Heston, I don't know who remembers our old KSBW, right? Well, I got to meet him the other day at a transportation meeting. That was pretty cool. He gave one of his commentaries, and something that's struck me, and I didn't always agree with him, but he made a comment and he said, it was something like the council's decision was practical and smart. And I thought to myself, well, it's practical because it's a short-term appointment. And the benefit is that there will be representation. Not just representation, but collectively we work together to come up with an idea. And we hear feedback. So I think there's a lot of benefits. The majority of people wanted an election, so we're having an election in November. It happens across our cities, our school districts, our state, when there are temporary appointments made. And like I said, I understand that we are voted by our districts, but one thing that the entire city voted for was the city charter. And our city charter is our governing document. And so that gives the city council, voted by the residents, they voted to have council appoint, have the ability to appoint interim appointments. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I'm going to be the cynic in the room right away. So what does this meeting here going to do for us, considering the district overwhelmingly showed up and everybody overwhelmingly wanted elections, no appointment? What difference is this going to make? And how are you going to take any of this into account, considering that the council already negated our opinion? And what is this really going to do?
Right. So, what is this meeting? Well, this is an opportunity for you to ask questions like that. Mm-hmm. You know, we are elected to make good judgment calls. People, part of the reason people elect us, yeah, it's our policies, it's our ideas, it's I don't know, you know, where we spend our time. But at the end of the day, it has to do with judgment. And we made the best judgment, or I made the best judgment with my vote and my voice. There's been times where people have come to council in the hundreds and the countless, and I recognize that we're a representative government, but we're also an elected body chosen by the people. So we have a responsibility to make really difficult decisions. But just to follow up on your question, I'm going to speak about myself because I can't speak about the other council members, but I do. I read every email, and if you wrote me an email, I'd probably responded to you. If you gave me a call, I gave you a phone call back. So I do listen, but I'm still tasked with making difficult decisions. And I mean, I think I made the best decision. Well, I know I made the best decision that I saw.
Why do you feel you made the best decision? I'm just asking because I don't belong to their district or your district, but just a question, you know, like why do you feel?
Of course, I mean, you know, you heard some of the reasons at the council. We have important things like Measure G, who's funding 20 police officers, code enforcement, a lot of different things. Before this last council meeting, the most attendance we had from District 3 was maybe 2 or 3 weeks before that at our planning commission. And it had to do with the cannabis dispensary. Were you at that meeting? No. There was a big discussion on the cannabis dispensary coming to South Salinas. And, you know, Councilmember McShane was very active on getting the word out on things like that. Those things are coming forward. We're going to be working on several different items. And so having representation and having an additional voice to give us ideas and feedback is important. Oh, and it saved us money. Although I do recognize the mayor said, well, you have a $250 million budget, right? What is another 200,000 or whatever the number is? Well, there's a lot of things like that. What is another 200,000? Lots of stuff. I could start listing some things which I have concerns about.
Like council raises?
No, I disagree with the council. Well, we're going to stay in order, if you don't mind, Greg. Lost my train of thought. But there are a lot of things. But it's a pretty practical thing that happens. So I think there was a question, and then I'll go to Greg.
Yeah, my name is Doug. I'm from District 3. I've been in the district for 24 years. I'm a homeowner, taxpayer, veteran. My question to you guys is, McShane could have, Steve McShane, who's not here today, he should be here. That's number one. Number two is, he could have announced that he was going to resign in November and save us all a bunch of trouble being here today, right? He's caused chaos. That's what he did. He caused chaos in the city. Why are we here today? He could have said, November is my last time, and I'm pulling out, I'm resigning, and there's 2 more years on the council seat. He could have done that, right? He could have done it and saved us a bunch of time and not create this chaos in the city. I, for one, called McShane many times as a member of this community, as a resident of the city, taxpayer, homeowner, right? Yeah, he called me back, but what did he do? In my neighborhood, I have drug dealing going on. I have prostitution going on. I have trees falling in my park, Monterey Park. Large trees. What do we have in that park? We have children. We have a school next door. We have children, right? We have elderly in that park. We have soccer. We have baseball going on, right? Did he bother to go out there and get the problem resolved, get the tree cut down properly so nobody was injured? He did not. He did not do that. There's a lot of things he did not do. The streets, the sidewalks. He's been on the council for 14 years, right guys? 14 years. Where's our police department? Lacking, right? Our fire department. Our infrastructure. 14 years. Why don't you guys address this at the city council meetings? I've been at this guy for years. Call him in a respectful manner, addressing my concerns as a resident, taxpayer. I pay a lot of taxes in my house. My property taxes are going up. That's the question you need to ask McShane. Where's he at? Why isn't he here? He should be here, right? This is District 3 issue, right? Why isn't he here? Why is he not answering our questions? He's AWOL. That is not a city council member. This gentleman here is a city council member. He's here. He cares. Even though he's not in District 3, he cares about the city. Where's McShane at? Call him up now. Get him out here. That's it. Thank you.
So I'll go to Robin, and then I'll answer Greg's comment about council member compensation. Robin?
So I think one of the comments made, and I didn't like the way it was delivered, but I think it's valid, about an appointee. And that was if there are only 6 members on the council and it becomes a tie, then we can't move forward with something. Is that in fact accurate?
Yeah. I mean, if there's a motion and we don't have sufficient to pass the motion, yes, it doesn't move forward.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, we're going to go in a row if that's okay, just so we have, so it'll be Robin finish, and then Greg, and then you, and then Victor.
So that, for me, that's what gave me pause. But I will say this, and although I'm choosing not to have my face on camera, I will be transparent about this. I also, quite candidly, don't trust the council. I think there's negligence. I think that it is a lot of quid pro quo that happens behind closed doors. I cannot fathom how it came about to have Jason Todd as the chief of police. And it's, I truly can't, for someone who has so much experience and to go down that road. And it's challenging to believe that council was not aware. And when I look at some of the reimbursements from council members, they're kind of all over the place and also not so transparent. And then,
good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday.
And then back on the for Major G, the flyers that we received were stating that funds for District 3 were going to go to District 4, right, for appropriations. When you look at the budget for Major G, you do see a lot of appropriations in intra-transferred funds. And that's also somewhat ambiguous because it's not outlined where that's going. So I would say that the lack of transparency is a definite opportunity. there also seems to be a lack of oversight and accountability. And that's why I'm here, and that is to ask, and in fact, you're the only council member willing to take this on and to address how we can have those three things implemented going forward. Because we can't go back and change it. But it does seem to me that there have been a lot of liberties that have been taken.
Right, and I agree. There's, a couple council meetings ago, I requested that we bring forward what council gets for reimbursements, for travel. I think often people don't know where council members stay, where the mayor stays. I know there are state guidelines, government codes, and so I'm bringing, that's what I said when I started. I think there needs to be a lot of policy changes here. And sometimes it's not a policy change, it's that we need to enforce a policy that hasn't been looked at, or a contract that hasn't been enforced. So I think yours was more of a commentary, or did you have a specific question for me?
Thank you. How is it that funds could be appropriated from District 3 to District 4 for road repairs, as was stated in the mailing that we received?
Right, so I don't know who sent the mailer out. I'd love to be able to have a conversation with them. I'd like to see where they came up with that information. There was talks about a pavement management plan which analyzed the entire city, which I have to be honest, I'm surprised we didn't have. I think we were shooting from the hips where we fixed our roads, so this is a good thing. I haven't seen a specific place where funds were allocated. Last year there was a report that showed infrastructure when I first got elected, and it showed the investment over years. And I think District 3 at the time, I'm not going to give you the number, but it was over $10 million. And District 5 over like a 4-year period only got $5 million. And so I recognize right now that's why I'm excited about our payment management plan. Because this will change, it'll make it, this is the plan, this is what was analyzed by consultants, this is what the council is bringing forward. Before, in my district last year, a road was repaired, and I'm glad for every road that's repaired, but the logic was that whichever road had the most complaints on it. And that's very unfair, because I had one particular resident who filed complaints all the time. Now, we want to address everyone's complaint, but that cannot be a matrix for road repair. So there are a lot of things that I think, ideally, I'd love to be able to catch up the entire city to an even point. And our payment management plan that's going to be approved soon at council will address that. But there has not been, unless that person in the mailer could tell me exactly where the transfer from District 3 to District 4. Now there was conversations, and one of my residents brought up the same thing. His name is Peter, lives off of Cherokee. He said everything in the payment management plan was good except for one of the metrics, which one of the metrics was depending on the amount of payment in the district. Now, and I still am not able to articulate my issue with it, but I'll share with you that we have some districts that are really compact. Now they have the same residency as District 5. So they don't have that much pavement. And they have high density apartments, whatever they have. And then you have another district, could be District 6, who may have more single family homes, so has a bigger spread out of pavement. But that shouldn't give them, in my opinion, an extra bonus just because they have more pavement. There's other factors like the age of the pavement. So that one issue is the only thing I'm still grappling with on how to best address that. So, I hope that happens.
Thank you. I think I'll open it up, but I'll circle back with a couple of other questions.
Absolutely, yeah. So then we have Victor. After Robin is Councilmember Pate. Greg brought that up. I know there was conversations at one meeting where one of my colleagues said, well, we only spend 4 hours a week or 8 hours a week. I don't know, we must be on different city councils. I spend more time on the phone with residents, than that a week. I visit businesses. That's only that. Our council meetings, we only have one every 2 weeks. Could be 4 hours, 2 hours, 6 hours. I also sit on the transportation agency for Monterey County. Very big lift. I'm fighting for infrastructure dollars as well there. Measure X. I also sit on the Salinas Valley Solid Waste. That's who handles all our recycling. We have a dump off of Johnston Canyon. I recently was appointed to the Rodeo Oversight Subcommittee. I also sit on the Housing and Land Use Committee. Between residents, I'm meeting with Northridge Mall tomorrow. And just so you know, I meet with everybody, District 3 residents. I'm just trying to get different feedback and get different people's opinions. I'm not going to claim to know it all. I'm going to do my best. My wife can tell you I'm probably wrong more often than right. She might join us later on, picking up the kids from baseball. But, you know, we do try to help everybody. Councilmember Payne, yes. So we put in a lot of hours. Maybe not all council members do. The reality is if we didn't have it, this is what I feel because it's not based on the future. But I'll tell you right now, my biggest struggle was deciding if I could afford to serve on city council. Okay, because they cost money. And I'm not paying to be at these meetings, but it's money from a job, money from something else, time for my kids. My son's playing baseball at Farashi right now. So it's a lot of time. If we don't have compensation for people, you will get the same people. You will get seniors who have time, retired folks, and you do need a diverse group of people. That's just the reality. And so I do support council member compensation. And that's my thought. I'll call on you. You're after Jim. Victor?
Yeah, you know, just a couple of things. I know the gentleman behind me, you know, asked where McShane is at, and so I want to answer his question. This is your meeting, not McShane's, so that's the answer to that. Now, on the other part, now, you know, I was here earlier on that meeting you guys had that day, and I saw the amount of people that was here saying that they don't want appointees, and you know, I listened to you guys, and you're here saying you listen to the people. And to me, the amount of people that showed up and say we don't want appointees, and then you guys turn around and make that decision to get an appointee, you know, it seems to me like that decision was already made before you even showed up. You know, so to me that doesn't seem like you're listening to the people. And you know, I know you're dedicated, and I know you know you do what you do, and I appreciate that. But one of the things that has been bugging me, and I mean, it's been on my head for a while. I've been trying to wrap around it. Now, one of the reasons why you guys said you don't want to leave the seat open without an appointee is because District 3 is going to have no representation, correct? Now, my question to you is this. Now, how do the people from Carla's district feel about their representation? To me, I've been following, you know, city council and, you know, city meetings and all that. And to be honest with you, and this is just my personal opinion, is that her district has no representation. And it hasn't had representation for a while. So she should have been sanctioned, in my opinion. But she wasn't. And I know that question came up about, and it didn't happen. So that kind of upsets me. And now, I'm the type of person that says, you know what? If people are doing their job, then you know what? Great. You know, they get compensation, they get paid. They should, because they're doing their job. But if you're collecting money for a job that you're not doing, then what are we doing?
I agree.
It's just, and it's been bugging me, to be honest with you. And it's got nothing to do with you. But in a way it does, because it's part of your decision making, because she sits out there. And she's part of the vote.
So in a way it does. And you know, it's what she does and what she doesn't do for her district, that's going to have to go on her. But I did have concerns as well about representation. And
right, it's on her, but
yes.
You guys as a city council have the option to sanction her if she's not doing her job.
Correct.
Because she's making your job a lot more difficult when she's not representing her district.
Right.
So my question is like, how come that didn't happen? It's been months.
Right.
You know, so I mean, it's just, I mean, it's been bugging me, and I know Tony just left, but, you know, I was gonna give him props because, you know, his vote, I mean, you know what, I give him props for that because, you know, it was the right thing to do.
So just going back on the conversation that they came overwhelmingly in support and we didn't listen. Remember, we're elected to make our best judgment. Now, let's just say as an example, we have rent stabilization coming. I can guarantee you there could be 500 people here asking for some extreme measures for rent stabilization. And we may get 200 realtors or 200 business people. Now, in that particular case, by that same measure, should we listen to the 500 people? And that's the difficult question, right? Because, trust me, if we were to do something where some of the requests we've received, I guarantee you there would be some repercussions, or not repercussions, there would be some people really hurting from those decisions. That's why I say we are a representative government, but we listen to the people. It's not always the majority of people who come to speak. It doesn't work like that. Because I'm just being honest with you.
No, I get it, and I understand your point. Trust me, I understand you 100%. And what I'm saying is that, you know, I know that it was a financial issue that you don't want to spend, you know, the $150,000 that it's going to take, you know, to do that. But what bugs me is that we're spending, how much are we spending on Carla? And how long was she gone? You know, we're already spending the money on her. Couldn't we take that money and put it towards the election?
Yeah, so council member compensation is definitely an interesting, and when the vote came down, I wondered too, are those who are going to, and I think we asked that question, one of my colleagues asked that question, are those who vote no not going to take the money? Did they?
Of course.
Okay, well, I'm just sharing with you that there's a lot of interesting stuff that goes on. I recognize, I understand where you're coming from. I do.
It's just frustrating, you know, because I understand your point is you don't want to spend the money that we don't have as a city. But
well, it's not financially prudent to do a special election, and if somebody can prove otherwise, I'd love to hear it. And the reason is because their representation would be in September.
Right.
So that's why some of these comments being made are really difficult because, yeah, 200,000, okay, well, first you're telling me no representation until November. But then some people are sharing, we want it in September, and we can't wait till November. So that's why I say I personally have to make the best decision that I see fit. And I want to go to Mac. And
sure. So yeah. I didn't, everybody in this room may know, I was here at the District 3 meeting, but that's not why I came in. But since it came up, I will address it.
Of course.
One, I don't think anybody but 3 people asked for a special election. So in my honest opinion, the special election, $345,000, was a complete straw man to scare people. Nobody was ever expecting a special election. Never. I will go on record and say that District 3, as a majority, did not ask for a special election. That number, and City Attorney Callahan and I debated it, I think was put out there simply as informative, but to scare people. The $145,000 in November, yes, it's a cost, but with the resignation, regardless of why Councilman McShane chose to do his action, was going to happen, right? I mean, it's a cost. But my comment, since we're on the topic, is the reality of having a 3-3 vote is absolutely none with the way our city council sits today, right? It could be 5-2, it could be 4-3, but there is slim to zero chance of a 3-3 vote. So what District 3 was asking for was not a lack of representation, was to make a statement that the vote that was not going to be made didn't need to be there. It wasn't a tie-breaking vote, it wasn't a lack of representation. There is no topic that will come before this city council before November that will ever end in a 3-3 vote. I would put money on it. It is a 5-1 vote right now on every topic.
Okay, so
hold on. So that's what we were asking for. It wasn't a lack of representation. It wasn't to exclude a certain person who may or may not run. I personally agree with the application process, right? That's the process. I get it. I was disappointed, but that is the process. I think what I'm afraid of, and you know, I'm here because you invited me and I'm giving everybody a fair shake, is that District 3 does not trust this council to listen to our comments during those interviews. And then appoint the person that District 3 believes is the best of the applicants. There is a firm belief that this council has already selected 1 or 2 people for consideration, and regardless of what we say in those interviews, that one or other person will be selected. And that's the distrust that you guys need to rebuild. I mean, not just you, right? Because you have nothing to do with Mr. McShane resigning, as far as I know, right? That was Steve's decision. Steve has to own that. He may have his own reasons, but he's an adult, he can own his decision. And I'm good friends with him, so I can say that, right? I'm also disappointed, but I also know why he resigned, as I'm his neighbor. I know why he resigned. Probably more than most people, with the exception of Greg. But it did cause chaos, and that's okay, right? Because honestly, this council needs a little bit of chaos. There's chaos behind the scenes. And if any council member, including Steve, wants to disagree with that, you guys are lying to yourselves.
Oh, there's
this council is dysfunctional at every level. Every level. So, what I'm looking for is for this council to show that they can listen to the residents of District 3 through the next steps of the process. Not just sit up there and pretend you're listening and have a council member scowl at people and like smart mouth people. Yes, the audience needs to have decorum. There were people in this audience that were speaking out of turn, right? But as elected officials, you guys are held to a higher standard, right? And I echo what you said about Carla. It's not my district, but you guys are all held to a higher standard.
Right. Okay,
right?
So, you know, one of my frustrations in government is I wish people were more engaged. I wish they would watch all our meetings, all our votes, because although I'm not going to bet you, you know, I'd love for you to pull the data on what our votes are for the last year.
I have, but the minutes are not online.
Okay.
And I've been requesting.
I think we're all going to maintain respect. That's why I'm keeping it in order.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you have any issues with minutes, I'll be glad to get them for you. I made the request myself. Okay, give me 1 second. Yeah, so I'd encourage you to pull the votes if that's the case. There has been some very close votes. One of the very close votes was the police incentive, whether we should allocate some money to community resource officers, and if you know, those are the people that answer most of the non-emergencies, code enforcement, so our PD can do other issues. It's difficult, right? Because we're having a recruiting problem, which we've had for years. So there was a conversation to try to get more community service officers, and I think that might have been a 3-4 vote, and then a flip-flop and things like that. So there are, I don't agree with your statement that it's going to be a 5-1 vote. Even on our sponsorship policy that we had recently, which actually came about because of what I consider people giving money to their friends' organizations, was a 7-0 vote, and it was a very good conversation. You know, I had been reluctant to address the word dysfunctional because, first, I don't always respond to all the accusations because I will be there forever. But I'm always curious what people's justifications, and I was going to ask my colleague, but I didn't see a point, what dysfunctional meant. The reason I say that is because when we're having a discussion, which appears to be a messy discussion from the dais, the mayor always ends it with saying, well, folks, that's how the sausage is made. And I'm like, what? Who's talking sausage? Right? I'm sorry, I don't know those references until, I don't remember who told me. They're like, well, everyone loves to eat sausage, but it's really messy. So that's called democracy, disagreeing and discussions. And by the way, we do not have, in my opinion, true discussions because the way our meetings are run, if you notice, and I try to address this with the mayor, everyone gets a turn at questions. So there's been time where I have follow-up questions, and I've reached over to the mayor and I said, I have a follow-up question. Oh, no, your turn is up. I'm sorry. And this is recorded, so you can watch it. That's not how government works. And I've been very patient. There's been times you'll see me on the council say, excuse me, Mayor, I have a question. No, we're moving on. Excuse me, Mayor, I have a question. Until the third time, she goes, okay, Councilmember Sandoval, well, guess what? I represent people, and some of my constituents are here. Ms. Bennett, she asked me a lot of questions. and I better have answers. Or Ms. Jan Collins, who was a former council member, I don't know what year, don't quote me, Ms. Collins, but they demand answer. My resident Peter on Cherry, I mean, all these people demand answers. So I think our government needs better processes. But dysfunctional disagreements, bringing up concerns about expenditures, new policies, that's not dysfunctional. That's government. And if we're not doing that, then she was alluding to expenditures and things like that. Well, yeah, I have a lot of concerns, lots. I think maybe some council members owe the residents of Salinas some money back. I do. We get not only our compensation, but we get $700, and Ms. Bennett told me that I better not charge mileage to anything again, because that's supposed to cover things like our mileage. You know, some people have submitted reimbursement requests for lunch, for taking staff out. What? No. So I don't count that as dysfunction. That's government. You can disagree with me, but that's okay. You're going to after Eric.
Yeah, I did like to make a couple points, but I'd like to preface them by saying I've got a background in both use of language and empirical data, i.e. numbers. And I show up here. Some of the people who are here on a regular basis know it. I've missed 2 city council meetings this year, and as Andrew certainly knows, I interact with the city council. The reason I missed 2 city council meetings, one is I was in surgery and they wouldn't let me come here, and the second was I went to see the eclipse. Every other meeting this year, I've been here. I don't see any dysfunction. I know what the word means. I see disagreement, but I do not see dysfunction. I see a council that is doing what we're supposed to do in this country, which is interact with each other and disagree sometimes and all that. The second point I'd like to make gets into the empirical data. This room seats approximately 0.03% of the number of voters in District 6, in District 3 in the last election. That means 99.97% of District 3 was not here, and that's not even entirely accurate because not everybody here was in District 3. I was here. I'm not in District 3. And a small, loud groups tend to claim to represent people, and very often they don't. And so I just kind of think it's just not a good thing to assume that everybody agrees with a small, loud group. Thank you.
All right, I think we have Maria, and then, did you have a question? Oh, yeah, after Maria, what was your name? PJ. Yes, Maria.
Oh, so my question is this. You're saying you guys were touching on the subject of reimbursement for council people. I remember watching online one of the council meetings, and City Council Rocha was saying how he's traveled here, he's traveled there. Does that mean that the city is paying for him to travel all these places for like Indio and some water places that he went, not water place, but that he went to check on, and is the city paying for all that?
Well, I don't know the expenditures, but when we go to conferences like in Sacramento, or for example, we went to the Water Welly Institute for Education, the city pays for that hotel as well.
So all those things that he mentioned, the city is working the bill for.
Correct, and if you guys would like to know about all the reimbursement requests, you can ask the city, or tell me and I will ask for you.
That would be nice.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll put you on the list, Maria, because you're gonna see a lot of things which I disagree with. Okay. You know, I want to even dig into the weeds about what kind of hotels some people are staying in. Why? Because there's government code about the rates we're supposed to stay in. So I went to my first, I'll share with you, my first conference. Their education will teach you how to be a better city council member, governance team, all kinds of different things. And I stayed at this hotel, I swear it was haunted, but it was really nice. And I'm like, what the heck? And I have a family of 4, so we don't. And I was looking around and I see mayors and the city managers, and I'm like, and so I Googled, right? It was $400 a night. And so I'm like, what is going on? So I called Councilmember Rocha, who was at the same conference. I'm like, where are you? He goes, I'm at the Holiday Inn, you know, $160. I'm like, why are you there and why am I here? And he said, it's because I tell them that I want the cheapest hotel room, you know, as long as it's not infested or something, because it's not responsible. And I'm like, wait, we could do that? I didn't know we could ask for things like that. I mean, I felt embarrassed, and I'm confessing to you because I'm like, what the heck, $400? I was there for like, well, one night I couldn't sleep because I swear I saw a ghost. But the other times, I'm like, this is so irresponsible, and I looked over and I saw all these other government entities, and then I'm like, no wonder nobody trusts the government. You guys are blowing on money on that, and I didn't know this. Well, we have a policy around that, by the way, and it says that the city manager's office is supposed to arrange your travel. So it's not even, well, I'm going to say it wasn't up to me, but I'm kind of curious now who makes what request and why they stay there. And I encourage all of you to ask that question so that we can stop more of this wasteful spending. Now it sounds like some kind of government guy. Excuse me, but yes, the answer to your question is yes. But you should ask all for that info. I'm sorry. RJ or BJ.
When we have the appointee on May 11th, and everybody puts in their applications, that's going to happen on May 11th?
I don't know the specific deadline, but I can look it up.
They close on May 10th.
May 10th.
May 10th.
Oh, May 10th.
21st, they're gonna have the appeals here, meet everybody.
Oh, Clinton, you're next after.
So how does it work when, let's say we have 50 applicants in, this is a number, this is to say, right? How would that day or night, how does that go?
So from my understanding is on that day, we will do interviews. There will be some, first, I don't like prepared questions, just so you know. I'm not sure what direction or how that's going to play out yet. I'm assuming, unfortunately, first, I don't mind being here all night. Also, the 90-second cutoff that the mayor did, I'm super in disagreement with that. Before the meeting, I asked her to do 2 minutes because everyone who comes here deserves to speak. But, so what I foresee happening, or it's my understanding is each one of those people will be asked the same question, so it's fair. And then there will be a discussion amongst council. And then somebody will make a motion in a second, and then there will be a roll call vote.
If it goes to, let's say, are you guys going to do, a top 2 or a top 3 and then do a second interview process, or are you guys just going to do the one and done?
So I'm sure that's at the council's discretion. I haven't had that discussion with anybody. That's a good point, actually, if there's one, like a runoff. Yeah. And then it was Clinton?
Yes.
Question, and then, I'm sorry, who had their hand up after? Greg?
I've been doing roads for 7 months, taking pictures, and every time I do a service request, it comes back complete. I go back and redo it because they don't know what they're doing. So I'm finally figured out where the problem is. It's the public David Jacobs. I wish Pia was here, Jim was here to hear this, but he has the power to tell David to do his job. And that's where the problem is. All this money for 7 months is useless. They wasted it. Then how many years before that had they been doing this the exact same way? He's talking about policy, change policy. Get them to do their job. They thought I was public works because I know about roads. I know nothing about roads. I know construction, and I know you don't leave cracks in the water and break up from large trucks. I haven't seen one of my service requests done with tar. They do these potholes, and I was going to show. I got an appointment with Kimberly finally. First time she declined it, but that's why I came to a public meeting and announced that she declined it, and she gave me one. So it took that. So that's why I'm here for that, because I want this recorded. That Pia has the chance to I told him one time to eliminate himself and then take Pia with him. He called me within 5 minutes, and I wasn't expecting it. So the point is, the work is pathetic. If I did the work, I'd be fired in a second.
Yeah.
And the work, and they're not changing. If someone tells you you're doing a bad job, you fix it. I can fix it myself. If you put me in charge of public works, you see the city streets way better. So all the money, they're wasting it. And Steve Machine was always telling me, give him a chance, give him a chance. 7 months. I'd rather have them stop what they're doing and save that money to do it right. So I'm telling everybody now in my district to call me. I had a car towed Monday. I went on Saturday, they wouldn't tow it, they gave it a ticket. I went back early on Monday, knowing the car would probably be there. It was there, and I was able to see the car get towed. So I appreciate, then also, that same day, I called every single council person. And only Orlando, he called me back and said he'll call the police, and he said I did all I could do.
I called you?
Yes, you did. And you're the only one.
Okay, yeah.
I got a message from Barrera. I mean, it looked like he was calling in, but he never called me back.
Yeah.
So you're the only one that answered my call. And I will take responsibility until that job is finished. I will take responsibility of what I can do.
So, potholes, remember, I don't think he was here when I said, I'm to a point where we need to establish a pothole plan. Now, here's the thing. The city manager, and he's right, city manager directs everything. City manager directs the public works, all our directors. City council does not direct staff. You will very little, other than some extreme cases, will not hear me talk about our staff because that's not my role. My role is this. There are some colleagues who call staff, not appropriate either. Potholes, when I got elected to the city council in January, the city manager was sitting right here, Mr. Kerrigan. He said, we spent $1 million on pothole repairs. It was the storm time, you guys remember that? And they were all washed away. And I'm looking around, and nobody said nothing. And so I contacted him and I said, maybe because we're doing it wrong? And so all of you maybe can agree with me on this. The county recently bought a hot mix machine. The city doesn't have one. Whoever's in charge could literally contract out pothole repairs every dang day if they chose to. Okay? I'm very frustrated like you. I'm only one person here too. Not everyone shares every view that I have. But we should be able to get a hot mix machine and fix potholes every day. If anybody in this city can prove why we shouldn't have, then they can't. And because you're right, it's not good work.
It's not potholes. It's cracks.
Well, it's everything.
The
but
cracks develop into potholes.
And then we have roads like Davis that just got repaired. I asked, well, I know, you're laughing. Hold on, let me get to your joke too. I drove around with our city manager the other day, and I said, this is ridiculous. I want to know when this project is up for approval. Okay, because we have contract language. I live by Santa Rita. Okay, there's San Juan Grade Road. Nice road, except for 10 feet of the road, where it's a roller coaster. I don't know if you've been there. It's right across the street from Lowe's. I went to go take pictures. I sent emails, and I'm like, when this project comes up, I hate to do it. Well, actually, I don't hate to do it. I kind of like to do that stuff. But hell no, am I going to push the council at that meeting not to approve that project until they do the work right. Davis Road is a joke. Okay? Yeah. It's a joke. You'll hear me here publicly. Okay, part of that goes through my district. I've driven it. People say, and I'm thinking, yeah, we should just have Bradley fix the roads. No, there's a lot of things. I'm telling you that there's a lot of systemic changes that have been like this for years. So unless somebody's willing to ask the questions, and like I said, when I ask, I think I've spoken to you, a lot of people, I say, can you do this? You know, or send this email at least, because then it helps me get back up. And when you send it to my entire council, they're reading those emails too. I cannot, despite what some people say, talk to more than the majority of the council. That would be a Brown Act violation. By the way, it's investigated by the district attorney, and I believe so strongly in that I've actually had the district attorney enforce that in other jurisdictions. And I currently have, on my personal level, a lawsuit pending against the city of Greenfield for violating the Brown Act. So I'm a firm believer in that. I think Mac questioned me about, you know, if I had a particular candidate. And of course, I'll stand up to that. But yes, we have big issues. But when you all leave here, despite, you know, whatever you liked or didn't like, those things about potholes, hot mix machines, quality, roadwork repair, the rest of the council needs to hear it. Now you think, well, they should know. Every council member is different. Everyone has a different focus. We cannot tackle all the issues. You know, I get calls for code enforcement. We're supposed to have a code enforcement officer number 2, which I saw approved in the budget last year. Nights and weekends. You think I'm interested in putting up a show that we took down illegal food vendors, which hurt our local people who go through the process one time when the next day they're up, that's nonsense. So, did you have a question?
I do.
And then Greg.
It's a little different, it's shifting gears a little bit, but
Sure.
I wanted to ask you about Measure G.
Yes.
I was listening to
I'm gonna sit down.
a little bit of the talk about it, and I guess there's a question as to whether it should go on the ballot again. We're spending $54,000 on a survey as to whether we should put it on the ballot or not?
Yes.
Does that seem a little ridiculous? I mean, personally, okay, so it costs $100,000 to put it on the ballot. Put it on the ballot. Don't waste $50,000 finding out you should spend $100,000 to do it. It just doesn't make sense to me. So, yeah, so anyway, I'd like to hear
All right.
your thoughts on that.
It's honest time for all of you. Okay, are you ready? Who? Yeah, give me.
I have budgets here if you want to look at
Yeah.
some of them that I pulled from the public records.
Mm-hmm.
And it's spot on what you're saying, was even perhaps even
Can I have you hold
more.
on, Robin, just so we maintain the order, because I want to be respectful of everybody.
Thank you.
So let me ask you all this. Since it was said earlier, I think by Mac or something, who trusts the city council?
I don't know.
Right now, I do.
Okay, well, thank you for
Straw
that.
poll.
So here's the thing with
You'd
Measure
asked
G.
me that a
okay?
couple years ago.
I used to be on the Measure G Oversight Committee. We have some members here, Chris and Kerry in the back, they're Measure G members. You watch those meetings for years. Exact same questions, exact same requests, exact same comments. So guess what? Without saying it for a fact, not going to bet on it, I almost bet you though that the Measure G committee who oversees that, which is, oversight is a strong word, it's not an oversight, probably would not approve of it going to the ballot. Because as she alluded to earlier, what was promised in the ballot measure is, well, everyone is saying some different stuff. Okay, so since I didn't get an overwhelming number of raised hands of trusting the council, if we cannot convince people the need, then it's a waste of time. Because I don't, well, I'm not going to say I'm going to vote, but there is a long way to rebuild trust. Because for too many years we tell people, and I think I've heard Victor say this, you say money's going to this, but it's not.
Right.
Look, I'm agree with you. I'm suspicious of myself. I tell some of my residents, don't trust me with your money, not because I'm untrustworthy, but collectively we need to make a good decision. And I haven't seen that for years. Right. So that's why we do need to spend the money, because otherwise we're just going to waste our money. Because who here thinks we should tax ourselves one more penny next year?
Oh, can I just
Oh, one second. So here's the thing. You may not want to, and I saw somebody on social media that said, we don't trust you, we're not going to approve it. We're going to lose 20 police officers. I mean, I have the list. I can read it out. We're going to lose so much stuff. The city will literally, it will...
$25 million or more
a year.
it brings in.
So despite some of the uncomfortability, we need it for our city. If you think our roads are bad now, Mr. Clinton, when we don't have public works staff to even do that work, or police officers, so there are things we need to do. That's why I said, you know, I realize a lot of people don't know me. After this, some of you might still disagree. That's fine. But there's some, we need to like come together. It sounds generic. Sorry, folks. We need to come together on some of these things. And then on the other things, you need to keep questioning. I got some people who call me all the time questioning me, which is great because it opens up.
You get phone calls.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, that's the Measure G pitch that we do need to know, because it'll also give us a pathway to educate voters. Or maybe the voters can say, you know what? This is the only thing we're approving that money for.
Well, yeah, that's a good...
Because it's been described, I'm sorry, you're next, yes. It's been described as a slush fund, as we can appropriate. I don't like that stuff.
Right.
There was an initiative going to be put on by Car Lake Park. They were going to tax the residents, okay? And I'm like, don't do it. And I said, they're not going to trust us. Why would they?
Right.
You're going to say, oh, don't worry, Councilmember Sandoval, it's going to be for parks. Oh, really? Like we've been that good at ensuring that? No. And so I said, I support it in theory because I think we could use the money, but you better have the best oversight, foolproof language So anyways, Greg, and then you.
Oh,
And then you.
Yeah, and you got 2 questions.
Okay.
but I wanted to say, can I go before you go? Because I'd like to hear your response as well, what I have to say.
So Andrew, you know that I think you and I are on opposing sides a lot of times on, but I want to commend you. I do want to give you kudos for being up here and, you know, taking these questions and taking the time to do this. And I appreciate the things that you're doing for oversight. I don't necessarily agree how you're doing it, but I do appreciate wanting to find out more information on how the sausage is made, right? But what I'm curious about is on May 11th, I believe, I'm sorry, April 11th, there was that, you guys did have that pavement condition index, and the city engineer put together a great presentation that was, you know, data driven, and it looked like a great plan, and it showed that District 3 was actually the largest district. And this is where you're going, and I can talk to you offline about some other thoughts and concepts I have, but you know, South Salinas is the, for better or for worse, I don't understand why, but for some reason South Salinas is the more affluent neighborhoods, right?
Oh, go ahead.
But for some reason everybody's like, ooh, South Salinas. But anyway, the largest road network, all of the industrial, a boatload of commercial, not some of the big box stores and whatnot, but District 3 has the largest road network, period, right? And that's what the city engineer said. And then she divided out this perfectly fine, you know, formula to bring everybody kind of up to the same level, and everything was fair, district by district, every district gets the right lift to 75% or whatever the number was, right? I'm not quite sure what exactly, right? I mean, but everybody's about the same, we agree, right? But then after that, then it's done by need and, you know, allocated properly, every district gets the same percentage. Well, it turns out that District 3 got the lion's share simply because of its size, right? And imagine my surprise when something is done as fair as that, by the numbers, you guys kicked it back to the Finance Committee. Why? I don't get that. So because of that, when somebody's putting it, like laying it out as clear as day with math, then the entire council's like, yeah, let's kick it back. When it was pre-chewed for you, ready to go, how do we know, again, how you guys are going to pick someone who's going to fight for District 3, not someone who aligns with you politically and just goes along with whatever you guys are saying? Because honestly, that vote to kick it back to finance was BS. And I know you don't agree with me because we're on different sides on this, but you know, I actually do like fair and accurate representation, and what I'm afraid of is that you guys are going to pick another person that's literally going to fall in line with you and not be that dissenting vote that fights for our district. Even though it's supposed to be district-wide, all kumbaya, and everybody feels the same way, we're fighting for Salinas, but I don't see that happening. And the trust level associated with that, just like David was saying, David had to leave, by the way, but he says thank you for being here. But I'm with David and with the sentiment of a bunch of other folks here that simply don't trust you guys because whatever we hear coming out of your mouth is just, I think it's BS. So, but thank you. I appreciate you being here and taking these questions. I really do appreciate that.
So remember, I don't agree with the BS comment, but that's okay. Remember, in the beginning of the meeting, I said the only thing that I didn't agree with was that one of the guiding factors was the amount of pavement.
Right.
The reallocation and the other stuff, that's why, and I still do not know how to articulate that.
I know it's weird. I know.
So that was my reasoning because that didn't click with me. So everything else, I don't think we disagreed on anything. As far as my manner for accountability and everything like that, I'm not that smooth.
No.
I am not that anything. I like face-to-face conversations. You get to know me. I get it from everyone. Why did you send an email like that?
No, our first interaction, you threatened me with a lawsuit. Or my organization with a lawsuit.
Right.
Our very first interaction, you said, you shall do this or else.
And was I right that you violated the Brown Act?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Hey, let me counterpoint that. The rule, you're absolutely right. we did a Zoom meeting when Zooms were just made illegal a month earlier. And all you would have had to do is make a phone call, and we would have been like, oh, okay, but instead we get a letter saying you're going to sue us.
What's the organization?
That's interesting, because I've actually tried to call Mr. Hirsch several times, and actually have not received a phone call. It was the president. But we can have that discussion more if you guys want to.
Can I ask what organization?
It's the Salinas City Improvement District.
Salinas City Center.
City
That's
Center.
the which is part of the
The
downtown
downtown.
thing? Okay, and you guys have never been schooled on the Brown Act?
We have.
Oh, well,
But
there
we
you go.
made one mistake
So, actually,
with setting.
actually, you guys made another one recently, but I haven't sent you a letter. I tried to reach out to you guys, but sorry if I'm wrong. You might not like my approach. I filed lawsuits for public records against organizations. I've won. I believe in transparency. So anyways, I know I saw your hand, but give me 1 second.
And I want to apologize to you, because I thought you were with the city and that you were going to say something about the budget.
No.
I want to apologize because.
Go ahead. Yes, I'm sorry. I forgot to circle back to you.
No,
Yeah,
thank you. No, thank you. Boy. So I think there's such fantastic issues brought forward that I kind of want to piggyback and then get back to mine also, and I don't want to take everybody's time, but I do want to piggyback on what this gentleman said, what this gentleman has said, and what this gentleman has said. Now, I first want to say that I think that the last meeting, there were opportunities for further discussions and clarifications, and I don't know whom that may fall upon in terms of the reasons why council members voted for an appointee, right? So maybe it's 3, but I think people who attended the meeting really deserved to hear that. Second, I'm hearing you say that you don't know if a provision can be put in or if the council will put in a provision as to whether or not the appointee can be elected in November.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, it cannot be put in.
It cannot be put in.
I cannot be put in. I already asked.
Okay, so I misunderstood that. Thank you for clarifying that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard the gentleman here ask, sorry, I don't remember your name, but thank you. And I think it's a very valid and appropriate question, and that is, let's say that you have a couple of individuals and there's a tie, then what happens, right? I'm gonna turn it back over to AJ about what your question was on that to clarify if I may, please.
Well, it was if there was a couple of candidates that they found to take the place, would it be a second interview, like a follow-up?
Thank you. And I think it's really important because there is a lot of distrust. And I'm going to circle back and I'm going to take a liberty of that to explain one of the distrusts and why I have that distrust. And that is that this council put in a city manager. I don't think there was adequate time with the survey, and I don't think it was appropriately announced. That city manager is coming to us from Watsonville. Watsonville has a population of roughly 52,000 individuals. The most that city manager has ever made, as far as I can tell, on Transparent California is about $234,000, okay? The city of Salinas is saying, hey, we're gonna give you a $60,000 a year raise, okay? $66,000 annually increase, but the most for the population that you've ever managed is 52,000. And by the way, the city of Watsonville had a major increase in homelessness, okay? So in my view, that's about as stellar as bringing in Jason Taw from the city of Vallejo, whose police department is under the DOJ. Now, that points to Mr. Pia and our general manager and a lack of oversight. And I question where Mr. Callahan comes in terms of that. But from what I've read, because we are a charter city, his sole responsibility is to guide the city and not necessarily look out for the residents. Okay, so $60,000 a year is a significant increase in pay, right? And I didn't see that on the survey as a question. And I heard the broadcast where Mr. Pia said, oh, you know, to attract someone appropriately, and when you go north of San Jose, is what I think he said, it has to be about 300K. We didn't go north of San Jose, and we certainly didn't get someone who's coming from a city that has a larger population than ours. But yet, he's coming over here. And it was just really no say about that.
So, yeah, if anybody was paying attention to that meeting, not meaning you, okay, I'm just saying, I was the only council member who expressed some concerns.
Yes, you did.
I expressed lots of concerns.
And the salary.
I did, I expressed those two concerns. Don't forget, we have to vote a 7. Now, my vote for that was because I believe the man has integrity, which is a very big key. Now, you may say a lot of other things are important too, of course. Experience. This was a national search. There was a search firm, and they vetted the candidates, and then there was a final list. Did I like the process? No. Do I like many processes we do? No. I would have liked more robust. I said so as much. I also expressed concern about, I was very tempted to vote no, I'll be honest, because I'm going to have to justify to all of you that if we ever terminate this gentleman, which I'm hoping we don't, guess what? The council approved $300,000 severance. Now, listen, yes, it's on there. So now you're going to say, well, we didn't hear that. Yeah, those are things you're not going to hear from some of my colleagues. I'm sorry, you're not. I have concerns about things like that. It makes no sense to me. Okay? And that's why I said I said certain things. You're right. There's a lot of issues. For that, he was talking about the, like if there's a runoff.
Right. And he deserves an answer though. I mean, I respectfully feel that, I respectfully believe that that should be transparent. Like that should go back to the council, and we should have an answer on that. It shouldn't be when we get to it, this is what we decided.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll make that request now, and I'll CC the mayor making that request that if we do have a big pool of people, or even if we don't, there should be that opportunity for a second interview. So I agree. Yeah. Margaret? Oh, I'm sorry. Go then. You can go.
Hi, I wanted to ask, so you can clearly identify a lot of our challenges, I mean, as a lot of residents can do. When we look to leadership to get things done, I think one of my concerns is, if you don't want to call it dysfunction, because people have different interpretations, you know, more of the discord as far as what has been happening, you know, and I feel like maybe there's a shift happening, but when you see, okay, now we have a city manager coming in, that gives me hope. And then, you know, knowing, okay, we have so much leadership that's left, they're continuing to leave and resign. Mm-hmm. It makes me uneasy, and I feel as a citizen, what is our leadership in place moving forward going to be able to accomplish? You know, what do you envision happening next as far as you have a city manager coming in, there's going to be a lot of work ahead of him. And then we have a District 3, either way we're getting, you know, we have regular election coming for the other 3. So, and you have 2 more years, you know, that you can put forth at least. You know, what do you see coming forward for us?
So, no one has ever really addressed staff leaving. Okay, I said, well, do we do exit interviews, which I hear are not that great anyways, because they're leaving already. And so, Kevin Dayton, who's the representative for the Salinas Valley Chamber of Commerce, one time posted, they did a, I'm going to butcher it, but it was some kind of employment study, analyzing their needs, job descriptions, reasons people are leaving, talking like a really in-depth study. And if you want, you can leave your email and I'll send this study to you. And they gave some really strong recommendations about how it is to work for that city and what needs to change. We're stuck here. We do the same, Bradley said it right, the same thing. And it's driving me crazy. I think that my colleagues are seeing the benefits of some of those changes. So one, I think we do need a study, although I hate studies because when I see the city do studies, and somebody mentioned the DOJ. Did you know the DOJ came here to Salinas many years ago? And there's a list of recommendations, and guess what? Not even those are complete. So when we want to talk about moving forward with some things, maybe we should start with things we already know need to be done. But something like that needs to happen. I don't think we're very responsive to people's concerns, like for residents, so I think we need to change the focus on that. You will come to public comment, and you'll have a comment or a concern. And I've asked for this, and I'm going to continue to ask. Remember, I'm only 1 of 7. How come we're not giving people calls back? I don't understand that. Why are we not saying, okay,
Because we're in bed already.
No, we're not doing follow-up. Now, we can't require you to check in, but if you have a concern, we should write it down and then get back to you. If it's not here, it's there. But addressing our staffing, like seeing what the root cause is, because there's a lot of stories that people have, why they're leaving. You know, our airport manager left, and why did he leave? You went to LA or a bigger city. You'd have to ask him. Their shifts, I don't know if you guys saw the news, the county has 700 vacancies or something. Wow. And I'm like, some of them were talking about us. I'm like, hey, we don't even have 700 employees. You know, I don't need to get in arguments with people, but it's really interesting when we start to look at ourselves. And if we don't have those real conversations, we're going to be stuck. As far as what we can look forward to, in the past, the way our city was run, I've only been here a year. I got here and it was budget time. And then I started, somebody said, have you made your budget request? I'm like, what does that mean? No one gave me the guidebook on this. Oh yeah, every year council members get to request what projects or who they want to fund, or I'm like, what? And so I did, I made a request. It was $5,000 to a group called Sustainable Salinas, so you can all get free trees. Program, they finished all their trees. There was some that asked for $10,000 sponsorship to Ag Tech conference. The ticket for you to go was $175. Meanwhile, we gave the Parade of Lights $1,200. So there, and I'm like, wait, this is not a fair system. So that's nonsense. So we have to address those things. Otherwise, we're going to be leaking money forever. So that's one thing. Infrastructure. Okay, many of you have not heard it. I hope it comes to the ballot this year. Is that in District 3, the majority of the allocation for the road work went to what's the big ag road? Abbott. Yes, I chose residential districts, residential street. But why do you think it's bad?
Because all the trucks.
Right. How? Now let me ask you this, all you researchers, how much do you think the ag companies in Salinas contribute to our tax base for infrastructure?
Zero.
So about 6 months ago, I proposed a tax on ag. Now, don't get all scared. It's not some. We're going to look at what it could look like. And I met with some leaders from ag, Chris Bunn, and I said, hey, Chris. You know, obviously has different perspectives than me on water and other things. And I said, what do you think about a tax on ag? He goes, what do you want it for? I said, well, how about just infrastructure? He goes, we would support it. Why? Because your roads mess up our trucks, which cost us money. Now, hey, now think of that, you know, so those are things that we have to bring forward. Otherwise, I don't know how we're going to fix some of our problems. But I really do. My ask of all of you is going to be engaged. I know some people are upset about that one, but Eric, that's you. Well, he usually sits one seat in front of you. He's usually the only one here. And even if you disagree with me, send a comment, call. If they don't call you back, text them. You know, like, I just need people to be engaged. Otherwise, I don't see much improvement. And hold us accountable. If I lied, call me on it. You know, Greg and I don't think we disagree that much.
But first, to get things done, like where you already said you don't feel like city council doesn't handle certain things. So where's our sticking point?
So that's why.
How do we get through that barrier?
And that's why the things I propose will come to council for discussion and a vote. And that's why some of the things I think haven't been addressed. So my solution is to bring them towards policy, discussion, and then vote. Remember, everyone is very different in how they see government. I got into government way different than anybody. It was actually asking questions that got me in trouble. everyone just had a different focus. I think that bringing forward like employment study, a new tax measure, more accountability, those things for discussions in the council, and then they can be voted on. That's how it'll happen. Now, one of the things I really enjoyed with Councilmember McShane, we were on a committee, it was called the Rules and Decorum Committee. I was totally geeking out because I love policies, as I told you, and he does too. And one of the things that was frustrating him was the way we agendize items. Now, I have a big issue. Yes, the government is watching, our city leadership is watching. So here's the thing. You have, well, here, Councilmember McShane, all of them request agenda items. We're supposed to have a projection list, okay? That tells us what's coming forward. In the moment, the agenda is not set by the council. We bring forward items. And so one thing me and Councilmember McShane worked on is that we modeled the county's form, which is going to hopefully come soon, where it's a referral. You get the support, you outline it, and then you give an estimated timeline. That's how we move the city forward. Otherwise, agenda items, he shared with me that he waited 5 years for an agenda item. I can't deal with that. Now, I don't want it next month. You won't ever hear me say, I want this now. I don't think so anyways. But I need to see it progressing. And that's one of the things we work really well together, and that's coming forward. That'll help move us forward, is we get to hold our staff accountable, which is what we're supposed to be doing. But really, we're supposed to hold the city manager accountable. Another thing, before I went off on that tangent, my apologies, is that we have a strategic plan that the council has been approving for years and years. Also, I think only Greg and maybe 4 other people went to it, right? And that's when we set the vision for the entire city. But what's happened, and I'm guilty of it because, the reason I'm guilty is because this is the beast that we have now. So if I don't do like big budget requests, well then my residents suffer. So then my community suffers. But I don't like that process. So what's happened is somebody might bring an idea and say, hey, we should put train, I don't know, a train stop somewhere. So the council may jump to that, okay, when we're not looking at the big picture. I mean, everybody knows that when you check a text message, you waste time. So if you're not focused on the bigger vision, then you get distracted really easy. And I'm like that. I don't know if any of you saw that movie Up or something. There's a dog that speaks and he's like, squirrel. That's me. I easily get distracted. So,
What is your bigger vision?
So the bigger vision is already outlined in the strategic plan. It was voted on by the council. That's why some of these items that are coming before us now, rent stabilization, those are things that have been on that plan for years. Not even when some of my colleagues were elected. So sometimes they're like, oh, you guys are pushing this. And I'm like, that's why I wish people were more engaged and ask the questions. But I don't know if you get a follow-up or if I missed something.
That's good, thank you.
Thank you first for doing this, and then going with the council. There's been a few times throughout, my years here, living, born and raised, some of the timelines that have been given to me. For example, when my grandma passed, something happened, and some of these things that happened on her property were brought like in the 90s, and then once again like in the 80s, and then the 90s, and then it got forgotten. And it was like, what happened here? I know this is not your responsibility, but through the city, like what happened here? Going back, it was just a mishap that something was supposed to be done. The city had came out to her property, and it would be, whole foreclosed. It got all taken care of, but it was just like, how did 20 years, 30 years go by, and then it didn't get popped up again? Another thing was, even here at the workers, trying to get an appointment, then they said, come back in a year. This is for local hospital. My point that I'm trying to make is, we know that the city in general is so overwhelmed, and then like this gentleman said, if District 3 has the most roads, if we have the most roads, we would require a bigger budget for that plan, just by the nature. So with all the districts, you said you've coached many years, I've coached some years. If the true end game, the goal, I don't know if you guys have done it, if you could bring it to the council, at the start of the year, at the start of the election, January 1st, what do we want to do as a collective group? Like you said, like the bigger picture. What's our end game? right? When you have your end game, think of it like a team or like a family. You have your siblings, you're the siblings, the mayors, the parent or something. But what I'm getting at is whatever district needs the most attention should get that attention. I'm from District 3. There's not much that I feel that we need, District 3. But whatever other district that you guys collectively agree on that needs the most help to bring us up, do it. Whether it takes a year or two, you do it. Then you go to the next district. And then whoever is the city council member of that district, it's on him and the mayor and the city of Salinas, mayor, appointee manager. You guys make sure that it's intact. So what's happened is just going back to what this gentleman said. I feel like, because I lived over on Rainier in over by North Salinas, moved to the south side, and there is a switch. There was things that I wasn't accustomed to or recognized, and I would say, how is this possible? What's going on here? One of the things I noticed is that the neighborhood in District 3 take care of their district. I've lost my dog more times than I want to mention on record, but he's been found that same day, instantly, to the point where I just posted, oh, my dog got away again, and I'm still making breakfast, I'm still getting my son ready for school, and by lunch I'm getting a call, hey, I found your dog, thank you, right? Continue, and you build the mold, so this city needs, whatever city it is, build it up. Take 2 years, put the nice things, do what you gotta do. Go to the next one, build it up. Go to the next one, build it up. Go to the next one, build it up. Next thing you know, everybody has been built up and we've been trained and we're involved. Those people in that district take care and they do what they need to do. It's been a little sadness to see like the park after where they put this beautiful rotunda and all these other things, and then it kind of gets slowly destroyed.
You're about Cluster Park?
Yes, so it's like, let's take care of our things, right? If we can do it. Point being, going back to the coaching style, at the end of the season, whether you win, lose, the championship, doesn't matter. There's always your MVP, right? And then you got your weakest player. Everybody knows. We all got that kid who was either forced or he just loves the game, he just doesn't got it. As a coach, if you have the standards and good morals and integrity, and you put the game and the life lessons, instill it, your ultimate goal should be, how can I just bring the best out of this person, right? And then the one who's your MVP, you put the higher standard on him, you say, hey, take care of this guy. Show him how to play this game. We are a team. We are a team. The goal is to win a championship, make it to playoffs and do what we got to do. But in the process and the journey of the season, we're uplifting everybody. The same is true. We're not strong. We're not stronger. We're only as strong as our weakest link. And if the weakest link is not getting any attention, or actually focused on, it will cause division in this district, in that district, in this district, in this district, in this district. To the point, I'm going to end on this, where he's saying, how could that have been diagnosed with the data and kicked back to the finances? Well, because this person from this district felt, why are they getting that money? And then this one, you're right, why are we getting this amount? And why? You know what, this is unfair, let's kick it back. Because it's unfair because one person's getting the boatload. But it doesn't work like that. Coming from a family of 4, I'm the oldest. When you're the oldest, you get certain perks. When mommy and daddy leave, you're in charge. Why? Well, he's the oldest. What does the baby say? Or what does that? Why am I never in charge? Why? Because it's not your time. You're not the oldest. It doesn't work like that. You know what I mean?
Somebody says Southside is the oldest part of Salinas, so they're gonna need the more help.
So I think we need more team building. We only had one strategic planning session. Everything else has just been council meetings. Because people need to know who they're working with. So the pavement management district, the plan, actually my district is first. It gets the most money. And I also agreed to kick it back because of my issue with not being able to articulate how I thought. So I actually get first and a lot more work to uplift the districts. after that plan, they discovered that District 5 has the worst pavement, which I didn't even know. I mean, I can drive our roads, but I never analyzed it. So I do think we need to be fair. That's why I'm excited that we're establishing these things. There was a discussion that it was kicked back from the Finance Committee, but it's still coming back to Council. And then that's when the Council will decide. For projects, okay? So Sherwood Hall's been worked on for years. Remember the pool? Who remembers the pool there? Yeah, that's supposed to be like a community center or senior center or something. So what happens is, we don't have a dashboard, which I don't understand, of the projects, the timelines. If you ever public records request my emails, you'll see I have the most follow-ups. What's going on with this? What's going on? And it shouldn't be that way. We should all be getting regular updates, so we don't have to be, I don't mind being responsive to the community, but if there's a place we can send them to, where, hey, this is the timeline. We don't have that. We're doing some pilot program for some little thing, but I'm like, this makes no sense. You have me following up. You probably have another council member. You have another one. If it's just there, transparent, then we don't have to do that. But we have, that's why I said we have a lot of systems in place that we really need to address. Margaret, Victor, did you have a, okay. Yeah.
Well, first I'd like to say that, Andrew, I appreciate your transparency and your grit. Because it takes a lot of grit to get things done in the city of Salinas. As somebody who's lived here a very long time and been involved in my community and been in front of the council in more times than not, been interrupted, not allowed to speak, and that done on a regular basis to people who stand up there and have concerns. It's like, you don't count, you have 2 minutes, if I let you have it, I don't interrupt you, and see you later, because we're never going to listen to anything that the community has to say. And it's very unfortunate to, well, you know, I watched the last meeting that took place, and as somebody who has served in an elected position, I would like to say you guys made the most pragmatic, most financially sound decision, which is bring it to the next election that is closest without spending additional money, and let's put somebody in that seat. Because if you had not put somebody in that seat, and then you're having the discussion of Measure G and other things coming down the road, I guarantee you, you would have had District 3 people in here saying, nobody represented us when you made that decision, and screaming foul on that. So as you can't represent, you know, you do the best you can, and by that I mean a council. Hopefully. I haven't always seen that. What I have seen is a council basically sitting comfortably, and I'm just going to speak as I see truth here. A majority of council thinking, well, nobody's going to run against me. Well, that's okay because I get funded by special groups, and I'm just always, as long as I do what those special groups want of me, I'm good. I can sit in this seat for 10, 15, 18 years or whatever that is, and never move, and never listen to the community. So one of the issues I used to come in here was, I don't know how many people are even aware there was a redevelopment, 13 zones in the state of California, 13 zones for blighted areas. Salinas was one of them, there was another one in LA, and they were throughout California. And the tax base that was collected from those zones was to be spent on blighted areas, such as East Salinas. But what we would see is that the very same council who, sitting as a council, also decided that they were going to sit as the board and committee on the allocation of that money. So basically they'd sit there and they'd say, this is how we decided to spend that money because now we're checked in as the zone committee. Now let's put our other hats on. You know, the mayor is the sheriff, is the postmaster, and now we're, as a council, just going to approve what we just said as people who are taking in the tax dollar. So that is one of the reasons why we have seen some communities whose needs have been met, and other communities who are just, their roads are terrible, they don't have parks, they don't, East Salinas, where money should have been spent. I remember at one point, a council member that is no longer going to be here, spending some of that money on palm trees that went up in a different part of the area, and when you look at the budget, I want to say they spent like $12,000 per palm tree, and so somebody made off well. And so this has been going on for far too long. So I absolutely appreciate, and I expect that the council that is sitting here now is willing to do the hard work. But it's not that easy to do hard work when you're in an elected position in which you can only do this because the rules say you can't do this, and the rules say you can't do that, and you can't talk to this one, which you can't violate. You cannot violate the Brown Act. And people are frustrated because now they have to come and they have to get right there and they have to ask, like everyone else in the committee, for a request instead of just going to their council member and getting it done along the side. They don't have to stand in front like the rest of us to make those requests. And people who have been on this city council for the longest and know how to pull the strings are the ones who are getting things done in their special areas or for their buddies. Because let's face it, it hasn't been the cleanest, most transparent, most ethical way of getting things done in the city of Salinas. And so we're constantly being asked another tax increase, another tax increase. But what they don't ever want to do is put a tax increase that is for a specific need. Because they know that if they do that, they have to spend it on that. So instead they say, oh, we're going to spend it on your library, we're going to spend it on your parks, we're going to spend it on your neighborhood. And as soon as they get the money, the police officers get a raise. And let's not even go into PERS, all the money that goes bleeding out into PERS. You know, as somebody with just one request that I've ever made from the city, and you know about it, is to get 3 trees replaced behind my house. And I've been making that for 25 years. And told them, well, if you replace them yourself, that's big trouble. So I pay property taxes, I pay all of those things. I can't get 3 trees behind my house. And that's a 25-year ongoing request. That's just 3 trees. And that's the only request I've ever made. There's so much need in the city, but as long as we keep robbing Peter to pay Paul, like dumping in, sorry, I have great respect for all people. And he does great work with the homeless. But the city taking and doing these dumps of the homeless, and then they push them all over into the river and creek bridge to clear out South Salinas and put a big, beautiful sign over South Salinas and spend redevelopment money over in the downtown of South Salinas, which, you know what? It looks great. It looks beautiful. But why should the rest of the city suffer? Because a couple of people know how to pull the right strings and get their way. And now they're not getting their way, and so they're going home crying and giving everybody tomato plants. You know, so I'm sorry. If you're a big boy, stick through it.
That was transparent.
Well,
thank you. I'm known for that. I'm probably more transparent than he is.
There was a question there, but yeah, I appreciate it. Was it Victor?
Yeah. So, you know, I just wanted to make another comment. And most people don't realize that this is not my first rodeo. I've been around this kind of stuff for a long time, even when you were in office, and trust me, I've been around. I was just silent. I just didn't say much. I've seen a lot. I heard a lot. And, you know, it is very controversial. Every time you have a city council, and then there's always disagreement, and we see it all the time. But I just don't want it to go back to the old days, you know. And one of those times where Castañeda was in office, you know, that was a very controversial era, okay? And I see a lot of that going on right now, like with that. And, you know, I listened to some of the council members say who their role model is, and I see what that person does, and I follow a lot of that. And to me, it is very racial, and I don't like it, you know, and it's unfortunate to see that much going on with our city council. And I come here time and time, and I keep telling you guys, you know what? I want to see you guys work together, not against each other, not follow each other. But, you know, you have your voice, you have your opinion. Give your voice, give your opinion. And to me, that's one of the biggest issues right now that we have. And then we have a lot of, you know, I guess difference of opinions about police department. So I was talking to one person, and we had this conversation about police department, and then I heard something somewhere else where they're like, oh, you know what, I don't like cops, oh, you know, this and that with the cops. Now, the question was, okay, when you're in trouble, who are you going to call? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to call the cops, right? So this other person made a very good comment. He said, hey, you know what? I don't like cops, cops this, cops that. It says, okay, now, let me ask you a question. If you have a daughter at home, living at home, okay, you have a young kid at your house, somebody breaks in your house, okay, and they're gonna hurt your kid. It's like, you're still gonna say, forget the cops, I'm not gonna call the cops. No, you're gonna call the cops. You're not even gonna think about that. The first thing is gonna do, call the cops, right? So I'm a big supporter of, police department, and that's always been known, because without law, there's no order. And if we don't have the people to enforce that law, then all we have is a bunch of chaos. And that's what our city is going through right now. Our city of Salinas is going through a lot of chaos. We have a lot of that. So my thing to you would be, I've known you for a long time. And, I've seen what you're doing, and I appreciate that you get involved and you get things done, and, you get to the bottom of it. I wouldn't want you to lose track of that and get caught up on something else. That's the only thing that I would say, for me to use. I appreciate what you're doing, and, it takes a lot, it does, because you're not just sitting there collecting your money, and to me, that says a lot. So I want to thank you and appreciate you taking the time from your family to be here, and doing this for everybody. And I know you guys take a lot of heat most of the time, but there's a lot of people out there that don't know what's going on. And they just hear something and they show up and then chaos. But, like I said, I've been around this thing. I work with a lot of the city council personally, close and everything. And I've seen things, I heard things. And it's not happy. It's not a pretty place sometimes, But you got to make it work. That's my only thing to you. But most of all, thank you for your time, and we appreciate you, man. And yes, you every time she calls you, you answer her. And you know what? Not everybody does that.
Yeah. Also, we have water up there and there's snacks too. I don't know if I can give them out, but they're there. I'm sure that we have other issues. I just want to share with you that, I know there's always these different narratives being told about certain people's perception of police, or, and I'm going to circle back. This is 18 years in the making, okay, folks? Our decline has been 18 years, infrastructure, staffing, it ain't nothing new. Things people don't talk about, we recently did negotiate a contract with the police department. The previous council, as you guys know, 0% raise, okay? That happened, that was 3 years ago. But of course, there's not a discussion about that. From one council to 4 another. We also gave a base pay increase to our officers about 2 months ago. We did a comparison study. We want to recruit people. Our chief's doing a good job recruiting people, but we have. There's been an increase every year of police numbers. Yes, one of my colleagues says, the percentages have gone down. Let me ask you this. If we give somebody $100 million one year, and then $200 million next year, but the first year they had 50% of our budget, and then the next year they had 10%. Is that a bad thing? No. So there's been increases. There's things being changed. But people are afraid to have these conversations. I thought to myself, I should invite the mayor and the chief for a real discussion on public safety, because they're just such hot topics, and people can paint you a very easy way. And I always say, show me the vote, show me the statement, show me those things. My departing colleague said we should increase it by $5–10 million on the news case with the police department. Where are you coming up with the money? I think we should increase road infrastructure $100 million. Right. We can't just say things like that. We have to come with solutions. And what happens is that causes divisiveness. Because then my colleagues are like, why don't you do this? I had a District 3 resident, and it's okay, I'll still talk to them, tell me that I cut the police budget 3 years in a row. And she asked me if I have gang member relatives, that's why I am cutting the budget, and if I'm trying to not get them arrested. So then I wasted my time going through my entire family, which I have a lot of. My grandma had 15 kids, and then I'm like, I don't think I have a gang member. But the fact that I'm even wasting my time with stuff like that.
Can I be in your gang?
You know what I mean? But that's the kind of stuff that gets told to us. And then, of course, we send back the data and we offer to have a conversation. But you want to talk about divisiveness and dysfunction? Misinformation is our biggest enemy. You can all ask me anything. I might be embarrassed to admit some of my mistakes, but I have to own it. But I guarantee you won't get that same from all my colleagues. Somebody alluded to why didn't they ask questions? They don't answer questions. Not everyone does. Everyone is different. I try to be the best that I can be. Sounds cheesy too. I don't know if anybody had a follow-up question. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I kept.
I'm always talking, so I'm kind of.
Yes, and thank you very much. Because it's almost 9, folks.
But I do want to, I guess, in this iteration, take this time to really thank you. And I think that was an oversight when I began speaking to not publicly express my gratitude. Because I first reached out to you when you brought up the discrepancy of the $250,000 for the rodeo. And versus what was told to us, what was spent. And I wanted to circle back with the gentleman from Measure G, and to also let everyone know here, I'm really new at requesting public records. I didn't do a great job first time around. I will say, you know, on the camera, what I ended up with was a lot of emails. I think it's very blanket, and I said the last 200 emails from so-and-so, right? So it's a suit that sits, but not an elected steward. And I have that person's emails that go to their work address from Petco, from Jim Kramer Investments, from Carvana, from a very nice clothier, and several others. So that was insightful, I thought, because as someone that's not in public office, I wouldn't be allowed to have all of those emails coming. You know, my IT department and my manager would be like, hey, what's up with that? But I do have some reimbursements if anybody wants to see them and photograph them. That, you know, I ask that you not take them with you. And regarding Measure G, to circle back, you know, I looked it up on Ballotpedia, and I guess we enacted it in 2014. And it is, just like you were sharing, it is conveniently written like you would write a patent, right? It's broad but narrow, so it allows for a lot of opportunities. And on the request that I received for the fiscal year 2020 and 2021, and 2021 and 2022, I see a lot of interfund transfers and appropriations. But it doesn't list out for me where those transfers went and what those appropriations were. And so I hear you, Andrew, and I've gotten so informal with you. Andrew versus Councilmember.
I'll call me Andrew.
Andrew, what's up with this? Explain this. So please know that I didn't mean that in a disrespectful way. I have enormous respect for you and appreciation. But I hear you when you say, if we don't vote for this, we're going to have bigger challenges. My concern is that this is just going to be an ongoing thing because there hasn't been accountability, and I don't know how we make the suits accountable and how we make our elected officials accountable, because they haven't been. So since 2014, you know, you're right, we have like 21 million, and then we have 28 million, right? But in appropriations, we have 12 million, and we have about 16 million. Where's that going? And why should I get taxed again? And I have people who are homeowners here who are saying, wow, maybe it wasn't such a great idea to buy property in the city of Salinas, right? And it doesn't add value to the community, and we're paying people some really good money, not to mention the PERS that they get, and then to look through polls and kind of and decide on what type of clothing and whether Carvana is going to give them a good offer for their vehicle. It's very frustrating, and so my pontificating. How do we hold people accountable? What is in place for that?
So Measure G has an audit function, but it's not. So we need to work on those things. And I'll tell you right now, as Greg has discussed at one of his last meetings. So most people don't know this. It was discussed publicly. Our accounting system is outdated, no longer going to be supported by the company. And when I spoke to our last finance director, he said, well, we have a 2 to 3 year plan to transition over. So when people ask, yes. So you see, what he just did right now, that's how I live every day, okay? So when people request financial information, we don't have always the means to pull that data or a report. So what ends up happening, and I checked in onto your request as well, Greg, is that when public records are requested, the organizations do not have a requirement to make public records. So what it means is if we don't have access to it or it does not exist, then we do not have the responsibility to create it. Now, do I disagree with that? Yes. Okay, but because people should have access to, I'm just sharing with you the reality, folks. And this is not a Salinas thing. This is a state of California public records, okay? So there are certain things, but we need to update our finance software because we can't pull reports when Measure G members ask for stuff. So there's a lot of things that need to happen. By the way, everyone mentioned PERS. That's the retirement account for the city of Salinas. Anybody know how much we owe in PERS because of mismanagement? Anybody? Guess a number.
I'm afraid to ask.
We have a 20 million
It's in the
deficit.
million.
$30 million we owe, okay? That's people's retirement. So when you see me fighting for policies that limit our contributions to organizations, we have to chip away at those things. When you see Greg and I, a difference of opinions on where I think our city funds should go, it's because every little thing, it matters. And I'm going to not put you on too much blast.
Can I clarify?
But hold on 1 second. I have a disagreement because, and I've been,
We're going back and forth, yeah.
So this, and this is where it goes to every dollar counts, okay? The Salinas City Improvement District, which is a district that encompasses Old Town, but also a big area around it, okay? The city council many years ago approved to tax itself to give to this organization to do maintenance in Old Town. Clean up, they hire people, they have Greg as their director. But what I've seen, and I don't have the data to support this other than my questions, is there's 2 zones, one main zone, Old Town, and then a surrounding zone. Surrounding zone also pays, but doesn't get the same services. And we pay almost $100,000 to this organization. Do I think it's right? I don't. Because if they want money for their area, they should tax themselves. They should pay for their shelves. And so there's people, this building is getting taxed to give to an Old Town group when our neighborhoods aren't getting the money. Now, he's going to make an argument for his thing, which I do respect. They do a lot of good stuff. I just disagree with some of it, and I don't want to give them any city funds. I don't think they should get $100,000 a year. That's almost the salary of an officer.
Does anybody else get it in the city?
Nobody else in the city gets taxed.
I live in a different area, we don't get it.
But anyways, so we owe all this money, so that's why some of these pet projects are nice, but I'd rather spend money on traffic calming that affects our residents, sidewalk repair, like there's just so much stuff I'd rather do. I'm going to kind of end it with the last 2 questions, if that's okay.
Can I clarify something
yes.
I said? So I want to clarify because I gave the impression to this gentleman and maybe other people in this room that I am anti-law enforcement, and I am not. The point I was bringing out with the measures, whether it's Measure E, Measure G, any of these measures, is that the city of Salinas always does this bait and switch, and they say, well, we're gonna, we're putting Measure whatever XYZ out there, and this is what we're gonna do with it, as I said before, right? But then they turn around because the way that they write it up, as you also mentioned, is they write it up with that it only needs 50% to pass. And so if you're specific and you say, I'm going to spend it on libraries and parks, you need 66% of the vote. but they say, oh gee, the residents might not support our libraries, you know, because they don't like to read books here. And so they say, well, we want to get this passed, which is a ruse, because what they really want to do is spend it any way they want. So they say, well, let's write it up the other way, and it only needs 50 plus 1% of the vote. So they write it up with this specific language, vague when you read it, and then it passes. And then when I said it goes to law enforcement, that wasn't an attack on law enforcement. What it was is on the city, telling us, we're going to fix your parks, we're going to fix your libraries, we're going to fix your neighborhoods, we're going to fix your roads. And then they turn around and they just keep filling that big black hole called PERS. And it just keeps going in there. It's like, you know, women know you put something in your purse, you can't find it later. I call it the black hole, like that. And so they just keep filling it. So this is not about, oh, I'm against police. This is about transparency and being honest with the community and with the public. And so when there's no trust, and which spills over to law enforcement, because you could retire at the age, unless it's changed by a year or two, at the age of 50, and collect PERS until 90, you know, until you're 90. And so how many years are we paying them at the last top salary that they earned? So in that last couple of years, last 2 years, so in that last 2 years before they retire, they tack on the overtime, they do everything they can. So by the time they're walking out their door, they're getting $200,000 and some a year. And then PERS is responsible for giving out, what's the percentage? I think it's 90. So they retire, they go off and do something else, like a detective job or something else, and they're still pulling from the bank here. In the meantime, the city has all these empty buildings, and where, oh, you can have that building because I know you for $1, and you can have that other building for $1, and you can do your other thing and have that building for $1. And so this is the kind of government that we've had. And that's why I say I appreciate you. I'm not anti-law enforcement. I am pro-accountability and pro-transparency. And 100% free speech and the right for anybody in this room and anybody else to be heard, to be listened to. But the way it's done, and one more thing, that charter, the way it's written up, is very, it's not even legal. It's illegal. So many of the things written up in that charter that say, oh, you can do it only this way and that way. If in order to get something on the agenda, I need 2 council members to suggest it when only 1 council member should be able to request it, you're violating all the constituents who are paying taxes into the city and elected that 1 council member. So no, it's written up very, it's a controlling document that all the control goes to the mayor. And that is not democratic.
So the charter is going to come up for revision, and if you ever want to have a long conversation about contracts and who pays $1 and who pays what and who doesn't pay us, then we can have that discussion. After Doug, if anybody who has not had a chance to speak wants to say something, I'll open up the floor if you haven't had a comment, because I know sometimes it's kind of hard to get in.
Yeah, thanks Andrew for inviting me here. I appreciate that, bro. You're the only one I can actually pick up the phone and call. There's a couple others, but you're the main guy. As I said, 24 years I've been here. I used to come here a lot, like my friend over here, Pete, or Eric. You know, I'm getting old. Sorry about that. I've been here.
Use the pseudonym.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've been here. I used to come to this council 8, 9 years ago with Wes about the homeless and the poor, and I sat down with Jim Pia, Dennis Donahue, Joe Gunter. I mean, nothing. No response back. What I believe is term limits. You serve 2 terms as a city council member, you're out. You serve 2 terms as the mayor, you're out. Let somebody else come in and share the.
Then what do you do if you get somebody really good?
Yeah.
Well, they put their two terms in and they're out, and they would find there's other good people here too. I for a long time wanted to come in and challenge Steve McShane, but I can't. You know why? Look at the amount of money that he has special interests outside of the city in this county. Where's he getting all that money from? Big ag and all the other nonsense, you know. He raised, when he ran for Monterey County Supervisor, he raised $1.7 million to run against Wendy Eskew.
I'm a firm believer, we don't want to get into the politics.
But I was just saying.
Because we're in a government building, so some of that
$330,000
stuff's not appropriate.
Wendy Eskew, she beat him.
But,
He crushed him.
but I know, some things you
That's
should talk in the
correct,
government
guys.
building about.
Where's he getting that money from? How much money did he make off that seat in 14 years? How much money did he make? A lot.
We want to separate our
Yeah,
community meeting from that kind of stuff.
I'm
know.
tired. I'm fed up and tired, Joe.
I understand, but anybody else who has not had, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Doug, but
No, you're good.
elections and government buildings is not a good idea. That's not what they're intended for. So anybody else who hasn't said anything? Anybody
No,
else?
I mean,
Oh.
he said what I wanted to say. The whole last Tuesday with the voices about the no appointment, that was about 50 people here, and there was, in the 2022 election, there was 7,000 votes, and so it's about half of the registered voters came out to vote, and what we saw here on Tuesday was a very small fraction of that, you know, very loud, and they, you know, did their best to intimidate me and to yell at me and to try to put fear in me to do what I have a right to do, and that's run for the seat. So
there's no politics. Yeah, no, I also don't want to, you know, I know I made a statement that even if it's a majority, I don't want to discredit because there are times when 5, 10 people, you know, they speak, that it does have an impact. I've been on the 1 or 2 people speaking too, against an issue or for an issue, like not in an elected office, but, so I don't want to discredit that. I just think I made the best judgment call I could. I want to honor, there was 2 questions and then we'll end it. That one Max said, it says, can you expand on why District 3 was removed or excluded from utilizing ARPA funds during the September 14, 2021 council meeting? Motion by Rocha. Oh, okay. Well, I was elected in 2022. But I will tell you why I think they did it based off of that meeting that I saw. Look, he alluded to it earlier. Gloucester Park, neglected for years. So there has been disproportionate investment in our city. And what he's referring to is that in 2021, there was ARPA funds, which is money the government gave us to do all kinds of fun stuff, like fix our roads and stuff. And so at that time, the council, I don't know what the vote was, voted to prioritize 3 different zip codes, 93905, 93906, or 2 zip codes, because traditionally they didn't have investment. And that can be shown through the amount of money we spend in infrastructure projects. So that's probably why they did that, but before my time. And then it says, can you expand on why the city cannot seem to keep a police chief, fire chief, or city manager, or something else? That's a good question. So, no, I can't. What I can tell you is that people alluded to it about PERS, retirement. I'm not going to make accusations of anybody, but however you end your salary, is that, who's my PERS expert?
I just left.
Oh, okay. But it's my understanding that they get that. But why people move on, I don't know. Some people got a 300, I don't know what the police chief's real motivations were. He didn't share them, other than a statement he made to the media. He got a job that paid him a lot more. The city manager, he was terminated unanimously by the city council. So that's why we didn't keep him. And fire chief, I don't know what happened with the fire chief. There's a lot of reasons people leave. But I wish people could have an honest discussion and say this, instead of some broad general statement that I don't even know what it means. And people say, well, yeah, you do. Political, well, what does that even mean? Give me some, this vote, this specific comment, this action, then I could deal with it. And then this other last one, that was Max questions. Does the city max out on amount spent on hotel reimbursement if it goes over? Council member to be responsible for overage. That does not exist. Do I think people owe us money? Yes. Should you be concerned? Yes. I'm bringing it up. You should ask those numbers. If we, even myself, except I'm not going to take responsibility for that $400 hotel room because I didn't know how it works. Or else I wouldn't have decided to stay there. But, yeah, I think those are a big problem, and those council members should pay that money back. You should all ask that. Do you think when council appoints temporary person with the election in November, it gives District 3 a chance for all District 3 people to vote to get to know the best person? So she's talking about the appointment. I'm not sure her true intention, but you guys know my feeling. I'd rather have somebody who's going to serve in the interim and not get a boost in whatever bonus points, name, notoriety, whatever it is. But that's just my opinion. All right. So thank you, everybody. I'll hang around if you have any questions on that.